And welcome back, fam bam, to another installment of Metaphysics on Your Mind Again. We're still in that round two era, quote unquote, that we're doing. This week, or this episode, I thought I'd start out with this little anecdote. Yesterday, I was in the neighborhood. I was in my neighborhood, and decided to go for a walk to get a cup of coffee, get a coffee from the takeout. And so I'm walking, on the street, and I see this guy who looked like he was having a little bit of a hard time walking. But he was holding his pants, because you could see that maybe, or I'll just say you could presume that his clothes were a little bit too big for him. So he's kind of holding up his pants, and he's walking really, it's like a struggle. Okay, and he wasn't an older gentleman or whatever. I'd say maybe he was 30, but he was disheveled, and you could see, not making any judgments, but it was obviously his pants were dirty and tattered, so he probably had, was basically living in these clothes. So I'd seen him in the neighborhood a few times, just walking, but it kind of like in that, more or less that same state. But this was the first time that I'd ever actually, been close to him, because we were walking in the same direction. And because he was kind of having a hard time, or at least the gait of his walk was challenged, I eventually caught up to him. And so I was passing him on the sidewalk, and I don't know, I kind of gave him a glance, and I just felt like, wow, maybe he's hungry. You know what I mean? Because I could see that, he looked, just from appearance sake, he looked weak. But he wasn't panhandling or he wasn't bothering anybody. He was just walking down the sidewalk. And so I maybe gotten about 4 or 5 strides in front of him. And I don't know, my mind was just like, man, I gotta, see, reach out or whatever, because I just feel like, he's could use a few dollars or whatever. So I stopped, and it was almost like he was about 4 or 5 steps behind me, and he was kind of looking down as he's walking. And so I stopped and, went into my wallet, and, and it's not something that is common, because, like, again, he wasn't panhandling. I didn't want to assume, but I just like, look, hey, bro, you want to get yourself something to eat. And he didn't even really look at me. He turned away. He stopped. I'm in front of him. He stopped, turned away, and just stood like this, holding his pants. And it was almost like he wasn't cowering, but, I'm trying to not be aggressive. So I'm like, no, it's okay, man. Maybe, if you're hungry, here you go. I'm trying to hand him this $5 bill. And he wouldn't take it, wouldn't look at me, holding his pants, and just, his head was kind of down. And I could see, he was a little, probably hadn't had a shower or washed up or whatever. He's living on the street, right? We all know we got a homeless problem. And it's apparent in certain areas or certain cities that this is a growing thing. But anyway, he just stood there. And so I tried to kind of like hand it to him, thinking that maybe he'll at least reach it. He turned, like as if to say, without saying, no. But you could you could see the I'm gonna say that I felt like he wanted to take it, but he didn't want to take it. So I said, okay, hey, I was just, thought maybe you were hungry or whatever. Stuck the bill back in my pocket, and I'm like, okay. And I kept moving. And then I looked back a little bit, and he was kind of sheepishly moving forward, so I'm like, well, let me just keep it moving. And as I'm walking, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it ain't like the guy, he didn't ask me for anything. So, who am I to assume, hey, he's hungry or he could use this, even though clearly he could. But what I was really moved by, once I got past the fact that, wow, this dude was just like, he didn't say no, he didn't get hostile or whatever, but it was what I perceived, what I felt was, here's a young guy, younger than me. His spirit was broken. And what I mean by that is that it was like, it was like the fact that he finds himself or found himself in the situation he was in. It wasn't just like you're down and out, right? A lot of people have kind of been in situations where things were tight. No, he probably had been far past that point. His spirit was broken, but something in him, there was something in him still, a kernel of, I don't know if it was dignity or pride, that wouldn't allow him to take the money, even though I could see he wasn't, he wasn't like mentally ill, or at least he didn't appear to be that way. He was like a kind of like a regular guy that it just, times were hard, living on the street. But his spirit, that's what I was vibing, was that, man, at some point, this guy, and he looked like he might have been, maybe not native to the United States, but I don't want to conjecture that, but that's the appearance, was that maybe he was from another country. And in my mind, I'm already thinking ahead, like, wow, he probably came here, had, big dreams, or, even if he didn't come here from somewhere else, this is a young man who, I'm sure had plans or dreams or ideas for himself. And for whatever reason, something went wrong, right? Something, whatever that might be. But the avenue he was on was the avenue of, like, this cat he was broken. And it moved me because, all of us who have had times where we just, you feel like you've been gutted, right? Like a fish, like you could just droop over because of something that happens, or something that you remember, or whatever, or something you relive. And I just felt so moved by the spirit, by the connection that we have, whether or not we're always aware of it, but we're all connected. And I felt like, wow, this dude is, how do you help someone who doesn't, ask for help? I thought that, by extension, it happens to a lot of us, right? We get into difficulties in life, And this could be of a, emotional or financial or psychological or familial nature. And especially, not to get into gender, but especially men, we don't tend to be as open about discussing things that are really, really, really gnawing at us, right? It's tradition is that, you don't go around talking about all your problems. You man up and you deal with it or whatever. But when you're psychologically or spiritually gutted, you're not going to be able to man up, okay? Your will, which is, we talked about the 7 chakras, the solar plexus, the 3rd chakra, right? That's the seat of your will, okay? That's where that light energy, that sun energy, that's its, home, okay? That's why it's called solar, the sun, and plexus, where all these avenues of power come together. It's a plexus. When that has been dampened, or to use the term again, gutted or deflated, you're not going to be able to man up, right? That's the whole point of when we talk about meditation and about balancing the chakras and moving the energy up through these chakras. That's what you're doing, is you're attempting to spiritually align yourself, right? So that you can go to that space where you are able to separate and view yourself. The program that's been running on your brain computer from birth, whether it's from your environment, your family, your school, your religion, your political system, whatever. All of those things become part of the brain computer's software. Okay, and if there's a malfunction, if there's a glitch, okay, then we have difficulties. If we don't have the proper outlets, those glitches can become blockages, and those blockages distort the natural flow of our energy, right? And then it manifests itself in emotional, psychological, whatever conditions. So I say that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to strip away the conditioning, right? And see what's there. And in meditation, by separating from thought, by separating symbolically from the flesh and looking at it, that's another term for that would be, self-examination or self-reflection. You have to look at yourself in order to assess whether or not you are in balance, or you are in a harmony. You need to be able to look at yourself and be honest with what you see. And that's what happens is we go within and we are able to observe. That's why we call it the watching meditation. You're observing. What are you observing? You're observing the phenomena of your thoughts, your emotions, this mystery, okay, of who you are. You're the only way that we can have a fair assessment of ourselves is to separate from what we think is ourself. And what we'll come to find in many cases, is programs and conditioning and the ego. And when we can move away from that for a time we realize that there is something else that operates through these programs and conditions. And that we call the soul or the spirit. And that gentleman that I spoke about, see, his spirit, in my humble opinion, was sorely vexed, or, I don't want to say broken, because, who knows what's really going on in there, but it seriously, what I felt as another human being, as another, person who has had his own struggles, right? I just felt like, man, you're not alone, man. I don't know what your situation is, but I feel you, okay? Just walking past you, your aura, your vibe, I feel it. And the only reason why I know that I'm feeling it, because I might not have been in your situation, but I've been in something parallel to it in my own way, just like all of us have, okay? And I was feeling it. And I thought, you know what? If we, on an individual basis, because I'm not a big believer that you go out and try to do things in big collectives, because then it becomes some ism and schism thing, and it becomes something for a minute, and it dies. It starts with the individual. So, in my opinion, the best way to change the dynamic or the expression of the collective is it's done through individuals. In other words, the more whole the individuals that make up the collective are, the greater the collective will be. The more whole the collective will be. You see, you can't change people externally. That just becomes a fad, a trend, okay? A movement for a minute. It doesn't have any staying power. The only thing that has staying power is changes that are brought from within. And then they become externalized. And then when it comes together in a collective, you have a group of healthier individuals who can then make up a collective that can be a healthier collective. Because, like it says about a chain, it's only as strong as its weakest link, right? So the idea that we're separate from other people and that, hey, my life's going good and, hey, he just didn't do this and maybe he's not got the right education. Hey, the judgments, we're all connected. In a blink of an eye, that could be me out there on the street. A lot of us know. You lose your job, especially with the changes that are going on now in this world, man, you a couple of heartbeats away from being on the street if things don't align the way you're used to, or, presuming that they do, because anything could happen at any time. The future is not promised. Okay? I could step out and get hit by a bus tomorrow. Dead. Over. So I'm only bringing that up because that brother moved me. And it wasn't about feeling sorry for him or whatever. It was about a direct connection. Like, man, I feel you. And I know a lot of you are the same way. Anyway, that's all we had for this installment. You see there's a empty board here. I thought that we might throw something up there, but anyway, this is it. So once again, we do thank you for, all of those who have been viewing these videos and subscribing and hitting the thumbs up and all that. That's always appreciated as usual. And we'll get back to it with the next installment. Thank you.